Shabbat Shalom. I'm Cantor David Proser from Kempsville Conservative Synagogue, Kehillat Bet HaMidrash, and this is the Torah portion for June 27th, 2020, the 5th of Tamuz, 5780. As usual, we thank Rabbi Avram Kogan, Rabbi Joseph Prauser, Rabbi David Huffman, and the United Synagogue Torah Sparks for their various teachings and publications on this week's Parsha. This Shabbat, June 27th, we read the Parsha of Korach in the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha begins on page 860 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 639 of the Hertz. The Torah's prototypical dissenter, Korach, from the tribe of Levi, a cousin of Moshe, leading a force of 250 men and supported by Dathan and Aviram from the tribe of Reuven, incites a rebellion against Moshe. If, instead of reading the book, you watch the movie, all three of these antagonists were combined into one character, Dathan, portrayed by Edward G. Robinson. Spouting a populist theme, he challenges Moshe's claim to unique leadership, trying to place himself and his followers in top leadership positions. They confront Moshe and Aharon, saying, "You have gone too far. All of the community is holy, and God is in their midst." Korach's message seems to be reminiscent of the sentiment that God had, in fact, expressed to Moshe right before the revelation at Sinai. "You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Many commentators suggest that the key to unlocking the meaning of the challenge that Korach presents is revealed when we read the commandment that immediately precedes this narrative in the Torah. "Speak to the Israelite people and instruct them to make for themselves fringes on the corners of their garments throughout the ages. That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all of the commandments of the Lord and observe them. Then you shall be reminded to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God." This is from the last paragraph of the Shema. Professor Yeshayahu Leibowitz, a noted 20th century Israeli theologian, argues that Korach's profound misstep can only be appreciated when his claim, "all the community is holy," is seen in relation to the theology of this passage. Holiness, as it is articulated in that last paragraph of the Shema, is not a given. Rather, holiness is an aspiration. It is the objective of a life lived in relationship to God and to His will. God has made it clear that the Israelites are not inherently holy. A path is set before them. Mitzvot are commanded. If people choose to follow this path, then and only then will they bring holiness into their lives. Holiness for Korach is not an aspiration, but an intrinsic quality. That is Korach's heresy. Never in the Torah are the Jewish people equated with holiness. Instead, they are given the possibility of holiness. Kedoshim tihiyu, you shall be holy. Holiness is always a goal, never a fact. Getting back to the narrative, Moshe challenges his detractors to a cultic confrontation. Both the rebels and Aharon are to bring offerings of incense on fire pans. Moshe explains that the man whom the Lord chooses, he shall be the Holy One. After Korach gathers the community to witness the decisive event, a frustrated God threatens to destroy the entire nation. Moshe again intervenes, praying, God, source of the breath of all flesh, when one man sins, will you be wrathful with the whole community? God relents, ordering Moshe to instruct the Israelites to distance themselves from Korach's band. In accordance with Moshe's explicit warning, the earth opens up and swallows Korach, his ringleaders, and their households. Fire consumes the rebels offering the incense, and the horrified and panicked community of Israel flees in fear. Eleazar, son of Aharon, collects the fire pans that the rebels had used from among the charred remains. Even though unauthorized, they are now deemed sacred. Although their incense had not been accepted by God, these pans still had been sanctified, so they could not simply be discarded. The pans are used to cover the altar as a reminder of the terrible consequences of this or similar uprisings. Despite the vindication of Moshe and the dire fate of the detractors, the Israelites continue to murmur, to complain about Moshe and Aharon. This ill-advised sedition is met with more divine wrath. 14,700 Israelites perish in a punitive plague, which is curtailed by Aaron's expiatory intercession. Further divine proof is offered to substantiate the leadership of Moshe and Aharon. 12 staffs are provided, each inscribed with the name of a tribal chieftain. One staff is inscribed with Aharon's name. They're left in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, overnight. Aharon's staff miraculously sprouts, produces blossoms, and bears almonds. It is placed beside the ark as a reminder to other would-be rebels. The Levites and priests are charged specifically with all that pertains to the sacred precincts and with the responsibility of keeping unauthorized parties from compromising its sanctity. The final chapter of our Parsha deals with the manner in which the Levites and the Kohanim were to be compensated for their ritual service. Their sacred mission is rewarded with a number of perquisites. Tithes and other gifts were to serve as the source of sustenance for these religious functionaries. The Haftorah for this Shabbat is from the book of 1 Samuel, verses 11:14 to 12:22, beginning on page 877 of the Eitz Chaim Chumash and page 649 of the Hertz. In today's Torah reading, the rebels, Dathan and Aviram, flouted and insulted Moshe. In response, Moshe defends himself to God. In the Haftorah, Samuel also has to defend his conduct before the people after they reject his leadership in favor of the appointment of a king. Both leaders epitomize their rule in terms of justice and respect for the property of others. The Parsha and the Haftorah both underscore the ideal common denominator between Moshe and Samuel: selfless service on behalf of justice and a commitment to righteousness in societal affairs. The Haftorah marks the end of the period of the chieftains, the judges, and the onset of the rule of kings. Samuel bridges these two periods. Samuel was both a prophet-like figure who judges the people, and also the one who was divinely empowered to appoint a monarch. Initially, he refuses to go along with the people's request for a king. This was not from any political consideration. Rather, for Samuel, the shift from theocracy to monarchy was a betrayal of God and divine rule. Only God's support for the people's request changed his mind. Samuel continued to believe that the nation's request for a king was a betrayal of God's ongoing care. Nevertheless, he eventually reassures them that the Lord will never abandon his people, seeing that the Lord undertook to make you his people. The Haftorah ends with this message of hope. Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos. I'm taping in the sanctuary today at Kehillat Bet HaMidrash, and as always, we look forward to the day when the sanctuary can again be full and we can do this live instead of on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Shabbat Shalom.